I guess there aren't many ways to find out about a cheating wife. I danced with Marcy Blaine at Harvest Moon Dance, the club my wife and I belong to. It's the Southside Golf and Country Club, one of the trendiest clubs in Chicago. It's unusual things like this that make Lucinda happy, and I have the money to keep her happy. At least I hoped she would be happy. Anyway, Marcy is one of Lucinda's closest friends. She and her husband Charlie shared a table with us, and he wasn't a good dancer, so I played the part of the good guy, giving Marcy a chance to get on the dance floor. We slid across the floor, being both tipsy, just relaxed, and I said, "You and Lucinda have definitely been spending a lot of time at the gym lately. Are you both training for a marathon or just trying to get even better than you already are?" I was just chatting while complimenting her. Marcy and Lucinda are actually both great-looking women in their 30s compared to my 40s, with long legs and amazing figures. But Marcy surprised me. She didn't pay attention and, without hesitation, said, "Gosh, Dave, I haven't been to the gym in weeks. I don't know why you—" Then, belatedly, she must have realized she'd said the wrong thing. I think she and Lucinda developed a story, and Marcy just forgot about it. I saw her looking at me in horror, so I pretended not to pay attention. I said, "Huh? Oh, sorry, Marcy. I think you noticed Jack Yelenick at the back of the room. I haven't seen him at any of these dances in years. So what did you say?" I purposely gave Marcy a second chance, and she took it, watching me closely. "Oh, I just said Lucinda is really working me hard. She's the one determined to always stay young. I'd rather relax in the steam room." She laughed, and I laughed with her. I could see that she was almost certain she had gotten away with it, and that was exactly what I wanted her to think. Inside, of course, I had a predictably queasy feeling in my stomach. If Lucinda wasn't spending a few hours at the gym 2 or 3 times a week, where was she? I never liked the term trophy wife, but I had to admit that Lucinda met all the requirements. My first marriage, right out of college, ended after a few years, and I spent the rest of my 20s and 30s alone, working up a sweat. I dated some, but mostly devoted myself to learning the financial services business and started my own firm. We hit the $100 million mark when I was 38 years old, and by the time I turned 40, I was worth about $12 million myself. We met Lucinda at a party and became instant friends. Not surprising, at least on my part, as she is a very beautiful and full of life, funny, confident, and intelligent. It's much less obvious why she was interested in me, although someone might have told her about my money, but she seemed to like me from the start. We dated for 6 months or so before I asked her to marry me, and although I made it clear that marrying me implied an ironclad prenuptial agreement, she was happy to say yes. At her insistence, we had a big, fancy Chicago society wedding, followed by a 3-week honeymoon in Bali, where she basically tried to fuck me to death. Did I mention that Lucinda likes sex? Either that, or she likes to please me and knows I like sex. Either way, all the bouncing we did, before and after the wedding, made me a very happy person. Now, however, Marcy's casual reservation made me wonder if I was about to become a cliché, the trophy wife's cuckolded husband. It didn't take more than 2 weeks to figure out the sordid details. Lucinda was sleeping with Chris Remington, Director of Human Resources for Chicago Serves, the charitable organization for which she serves as a volunteer. Lucinda didn't want to work all the time once we were married, and that was fine with me. Apparently, they sweated it out in the bedrooms of various fancy hotels for months on end. God knows how they paid for the rooms, because Lucinda was careful to make sure there were no surprise charges from her Platinum Amex card. However, all this fun didn't stop Lucinda from keeping my bed warm. Our own sex life was as vigorous as ever. I didn't know if she really still cared about me, or if she was somehow aroused to jump into bed with me after returning from her boyfriend's sex. But it didn't really matter. Now that I knew I was sharing her, our marriage had to end. But you don't succeed in business by being hot-tempered and acting on emotion, and I was pretty successful in business. I decided to take at least 2 weeks to think about my options before I lowered the arrow on my sweet, misguided wife. She would leave. That was decided. But first I needed to know more. And the more had to do with a conversation on one of the audio tapes my detective agency had told me about. They had all the audio and pictures I would ever need, but I hadn't watched or listened to any of it. She cheated on me. Our marriage was over. And that was it. No need to torture myself, but apparently her intimate conversations started to go beyond the usual, moving into the realm of, I can hardly wait until we're together all the time, and when are you going to get all the money together and leave your husband? Stories erotic. This got my attention, so I did a little careful investigation and checking. It turned out that over the past 4 months, my loving bride had managed to sneak away over $230,000 of my money. She had been making routine ATM withdrawals, not too much at a time, but much more frequently than she used to. And she was buying dresses, shoes, and accessories with her Amex card. I never limited her budget, and then quietly returning them for cash. I know the stores wouldn't allow you to do that. My guess is that Lucinda was quietly working with them, either because she was such a good customer or because someone was getting a discount. Either way, she was getting away with it. So I caught Lucinda red-handed, but I didn't know where the money was. And I knew that $230,000 wasn't enough to keep her happy for long, so I thought, what's the rest of the plan? And decided to sit tight a little longer until I figured it all out. It wasn't until 3 days later that I got an answer. A young woman from First United Bank had called my office to discuss my safe deposit box. Actually, our safe deposit box, because it was a joint account with Lucinda. The young woman, Judy Stenberg, was obviously a good employee, attentive and proactive. She had only been working at the bank for a few weeks, having gotten the job when she returned from Sweden, where she had worked for several years and acquired a husband. So she called to let me know that my wife had made quite a scene that day. She tried to gain access to our safe deposit box, but Judy informed her that she couldn't open it unless I was also present and signed the bank ledger. It seems that Lucinda was being too demonstrative in showing her feelings, and Judy needed the help of 2 security guards to get her to leave. It only took a few seconds before I realized that I now knew the rest of Lucinda's plans. In our safe deposit box, among various legal documents of no financial value, was about $2 million worth of jewelry that I had purchased for my beloved wife. A dazzling diamond necklace, several diamond earrings, and a sapphire and diamond bracelet. I had always thought that, whatever my other charms, it was these expensive purchases of mine that convinced Lucinda of my potential as a husband. And now it seemed that she viewed these trinkets as a stash for her and Chris, her young lover's escape. A few more days of audio surveillance gave the rest I needed. Lucinda had already given Chris the money. She seemed to trust her lover a lot. They had bought plane tickets for 2 separate and elaborate trips to Rio de Janeiro. All that was left for Chris was to impersonate me at the bank and help Lucinda get the jewelry out of the safe. After that, they'll be on their way. Whoever said knowledge is power was absolutely right. The rest was child's play. On the morning of Thursday, November 19th, Lucinda wanted to wake me up early. She had a nice way of doing it, too. Then she dragged me into the shower where we played a little while we bathed. "That was a good start to the day, honey," I said. "Isn't there a special occasion today?" She smiled back and handed me my coffee. "Not at all, Dave. I just wanted to make sure you knew how I felt about you." She came over and sat on my lap, snuggling up and feeding me a piece of bacon. We hugged and kissed for the rest of breakfast, and then I went to get dressed for work. As I was putting on my coat, she came down the hall and said carelessly, "Oh, by the way, darling, that damned board meeting has been moved to this evening, so I may be quite late. It's a big annoyance, but I promised I'd go. Will you forgive me?" I got another big hug and kiss along with the question, and of course I told her it was okay. It wasn't hard to see what she meant. She was forcing me not to worry, giving myself a few extra hours before I wondered where she had disappeared to. I smiled as I sat at my desk. Today was the day, and everything was in place. Lucinda's flight was scheduled to leave at 2:35, and Chris's flight, on a different airline, was scheduled to leave at 3:15. My men would be at the airport by noon, and when Chris tried to board, he would be arrested for concealing over $10,000 in cash in violation of federal currency regulations. I had evidence to show that the money was mine. Well, mine and Lucinda's, and there was little doubt he'd be in jail for some time. But no one was going to bother Lucinda. She would check her bags, get on the plane, and be on her way. After about 19 hours and 4 flights, she would land in Rio, ready to start her new life with Chris, lots of money and lots of valuable jewelry. The only problem was that there would be no Chris and no cash. My phone rang just after 11:30. As expected, it was Judy Stenberg. "They were here," she said. "As you predicted, your wife came in with someone else, a tall guy, a little younger than her. He signed your name and they spent a few minutes with the safe and then left." I smiled broadly. "Thank you, Judy. You've been a great help to me, and I really appreciate you letting me quietly enter my safe deposit box the other day once I explained the situation." I leaned back in my chair, savoring the vision of Lucinda on the plane, holding her large purse in her lap with $2 million worth of jewelry, unaware that it was all fakes, worth about $150. Somehow I doubted that this money would be quite enough to give Lucinda the life she hoped for and was used to. "Listen," I said, "I'd like to express my appreciation in person. How about I take you and Hendrik out to dinner this Saturday night? Somewhere really fancy, like La Rondine?" Judy giggled and said, "Thanks, Uncle Dave, that would be great."